Thank you. This is the Grand Rapids Symphonic Band. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of announcements. I'm just going to try to get at the music. But that piece is one of the hard, classic pieces of band literature. I've tried to do it for 31 years, and I finally got to do it. So thank them for giving me the opportunity to conduct one of my favorite pieces of all time. Moving forward to a tune called Capriccio. This is another cool event. This is our world premiere of this piece. We helped commission this piece with several other bands across the United States from Kevin Day. And so Capriccio is a new creation, and you are getting the world premiere of it. We played it at contest, but this is our official world premiere of Capriccio by Kevin Day. Yeah, that was Ethan Bowe on the soprano side. Speaking of Ethan Bowe and all kinds of awards, Ethan Bowe is just recently named to the All-State Band for next year. So he tried out and made All-State Band. That's a huge accomplishment. We have a current Minnesota All-State Band member, Oliver Grossland, was in All-State Band this year on trombone, and next year he made the All-State Jazz Ensemble, and we haven't had one since the late 1990s. So that's a huge accomplishment. So I was just fine doing 3 tunes, and this band was very much into wanting to do this next piece of music, and it is a beast. It's called Angels in the Architecture, and considering everything going on and the Pope and all this other stuff, it kind of seemed like it kind of fit. This is written as a depiction of the Sydney Opera House. Apparently there's a bunch of angels in the architecture, and there's a whole bunch of this and that we can go into. What you'll hear is moments of faith, and there's moments of, I don't know if it's all there. And I think that's the point of our constant journey. Whatever you believe in, or this, that, and the other, there's always that leap of faith, and there's always that leap of, I wonder what's out there. So this is Angels in the Architecture. It is decidedly written for you to feel a bunch of emotion. Everything from being held to being placed in fire and brimstone. So if you feel that, we did our job. Yeah. That's a lot. I promise the next one is just fun, lighthearted. I'm gonna get you home and make you feel good. A few things that we need to talk about. We have a bunch of seniors that this is it, and I have one. So this is the second time I've got to do this, or had to do this, either way, but if all of our seniors would stand up and be recognized for all the everything that you did through all your years. I told them before the concert tonight that they've put in so much work, just like all of them, that you've done all the hard work. Now it's just joy and excellence. Go play the rest of your life. Every one of them is good enough to play at the college level. So if you're sending your kid to college, tell them to play, they'll get paid. That's less money you gotta pay out of your pocket for college. Wouldn't that be great? A few other things, we have a peel-off card going on, and I know it's really hard to fundraise this time of the year after Hawaii, but our process never ends. We spent a lot of money going to Hawaii and extra money out of previous trips, people that did some fundraising after the trip. So if you haven't seen a peel-off card at home, well, maybe you could ask your kid or get a couple, or you can do the online one. That'd be very helpful. Tomorrow night, marching band kicks off with a meeting here in the band room at 6, or here, I don't know, one of the two. I think in the band room. So that'll be cool. We have a couple other things to recognize, a couple of awards. We have a Spirit Award at Grand Rapids, which exemplifies everything about band. They go above and beyond. They're loading trailers, they're running around selling things. They're the face of what we do. And it's voted on, and then the band directors are also do some advising on that. And this year's winner, it's the epitome of a Spirit Award, and that's Josiah Kwiatkowski. We'll have a plaque made for him that he can display at home for forever. Josiah's going to Canada, University of Manitoba. Yeah. And we have another award is the John Philip Sousa Award, which is a nationally recognized award for a senior displaying leadership, musicianship, all of the qualities that we would want out of somebody to represent really the grandfather of band, John Philip Sousa. And this year's award winner carries every one of those traits, Miss Katie Chung. Okay, thank you again for coming out supporting these kids. This program performs over 100 times a year, and it's no small feat. Thanks to all of your help and fundraising and all of those things that go into having an unbelievable music program that we get to be a part of. And again, I tell them all the time, they take for granted, first of all, the performance venues, the opportunities, and how good they are. There's probably over 500 bands in the state of Minnesota, and I put these guys against the top 50. And they just kind of take it for granted that they work that hard and they've achieved excellence. And I told the seniors, but I told the whole band, you've done all the hard work. Just come and spread joy every day and keep playing your horn until you can't anymore. So I encourage you, you've invested and they've invested all that time and energy. Keep them going, keep them playing after high school, get them wherever. There's community bands all over, there's pep bands. Just keep them doing, they did all the heavy lifting. All right, it's enough out of me. Havana Nights, really fun. It features a whole bunch of soloists. I'll have them stand up at the end. This is our last tune. You've stayed beyond the time that I usually allot for concerts, so thank you.